Hello everyone, so today I'm going to be giving some feedback for the submissions of the last challenge I set on the YouTube channel and also my Discord server. The challenge was to use only one brush and to use some other limitation, so maybe only work on one layer, maybe only use one tool or limited opacity, something like that. That was entirely up to the artists themselves, and to do a master study because I think they're so important. The idea there is that to push yourself outside your comfort zone and potentially learn something about your process and develop it. Thank you so much for the people that submitted on the Discord. Fantastic work overall. You guys have absolutely smashed it. It's been brilliant. So hopefully this video is going to be useful for you guys and also anyone else watching, because understanding where other people go wrong, trust me, they are not alone. Everyone makes these mistakes. So hopefully you'll see some errors you make in your own process and you can learn from it. So let's get into it. Okay, so I'm going to start with Alina's work, and I might paint over some areas and I might just add notes. Hopefully it's going to be useful. One thing I really like that you've done here is you've created planes for change of direction to show where the light's hitting it, and you've kind of simplified the form. I really like that. I think that's a great process to start a painting and start to understand how paintings are constructed. So if you're an artist that really struggles with getting an image down that looks relatively correct with lighting, this is a great process to follow. So what I mean by that is there is a plane here and it is mostly one color with the odd change. Same here, you've got a plane there and then a different plane underneath it. And you've kind of done that all around the image here. That's really cool. I think that's a really good process to do, and I actually really like that yours is like a simplified version, which is really nice. Overall, I mean, it's pretty accurate. There are some issues, so it depends if you were aiming for accuracy or just to get the general mood. It looks like you were going for general mood rather than accuracy, but I think sometimes it's worth pointing out errors just so you know for future images. These people are really small compared to these, so if you look at this line here, they're all relatively similar size, but they do get slightly smaller as they go along because of the perspective. In yours, it's big, big, tiny, big. So you got big, big, then they're tiny here, and then they're big again here. And it just makes the perspective feel weird. It feels off. It feels like they may be kids. So tiny little error, but it can lead to big assumptions from the viewer. So watch out for that. Other small errors, I mean, you've got the rock goes below the water there and yours joins up with it. On their own, they're not a big problem, but just make sure when you're creating an image like this, like that's something I would have looked for, is where's the horizon line, what goes below it, what goes above it. You don't want a tangent of the rock meeting that horizon line. And the tangent is where two things meet and they shouldn't. Other than that, really nice. Colors, very good. You're a little bit extreme in some areas, and I think that tends to happen with digital artwork. So you kind of pushed, if there's purple, you've pushed that purple a little bit brighter. So here, if I select this purple, relatively saturated. If I select this one, see it darted left a little bit. You can kind of see yours goes left. And the reason the further right goes is the more saturated. So yours is a little too saturated. Now, things to develop. I'd love to see you spend an hour on this just to see how much detail you can add, to see if you can polish it a little bit more. I don't know if this is at your max capacity. I think I've seen your work before and I don't think that's the case. So it would be great to see you refine it a little bit more, clean up some of these edges and add a little bit more detail to make the image really pop. The area of focus is interesting in this image. So for me, it's here and it leads up here through this and it leads to the sky. The sky for me, like this kind of building and the sky is quite important. Now with that in mind, value structures are really important. So you'll notice in this image, the bottom half, all the values are darker than they are here. So this bit here, this rock is darker than this rock here. That's something you can improve. Yours doesn't do that. Yours are too light. So this rock here, this here, this here, they're all too light. So if I color select that bit there and then color select there, yours is brighter. This one I think is more noticeable. So this one there compared to this one here, see it jumps down. If I hover over, you can see theirs is darker. Subtle adjustments are going to make a huge difference there. So just have that awareness. You can literally just grab that and do that, and that'll start to help the image. And again, down here as well does the same thing. So all of that that section down below is darker, allowing you to brighten up that midsection there. And the final thing I'm going to say is the sky. So the sky, like I said, I think is quite important. And for me, yours is a little bit too messy, too many brush strokes. So I'm going to grab a brush that's kind of similar to yours and just spend maybe 30 seconds just cleaning it up. Now this might have been due to time constraints, might have been because you didn't feel like it was that important, but just spending a little bit more time I think is worthwhile, because it is the important part of the image. Now you're going to hear me a lot saying what was important to you and what the artist thinks important, because with a study it's about what you're trying to learn. Now if you know how to render but you're not particularly good at establishing a light source early on, then what Alina's done here is fantastic. That's exactly what you'd want to do. And for all I know that is the case, but I don't know, so I'm just going to mention the things that pop up. Yeah, and that you've added like quite a brown, but it is more of a kind of a blue tone there. Again, if you've got like the brightest part of that image is that moon. So again, I'd add that in and then add the yellow in around it. And just go around cleaning it up. If I turn that layer on and off, you can start to see I've just started to calm some of the areas down. And it need quite a lot of work, but it's just getting rid of some of those messy brush strokes, because what you end up with is quite a lot of stepping. And it's just ugly. So stepping is when you end up with this. We don't ever want that. So if you find you're getting that, use full opacity brushes and then blend more like this by color picking in between, like that. You'll get a nicer gradient. You do still get steps, but they're more controllable and they're more pleasing to look at. And if you don't like that at all and you want something really smooth, you will need to use a different brush. But well done, Alina, great work. Let's move on. So we've got Jennyfied next. Sorry, I'm using your names from Discord. I hope that's okay. This is really good. The main issues I've got, it feels a little stiff, and there is some problems with proportions in areas which we'll tackle. But I feel like overall you've captured the character really well. It's mainly developing an understanding of how to read the form correctly, because it almost looks like, I completely understand why you've ended up where you've ended up, but it is definitely wrong. So just trying to work out why you did that and trying to develop from it. Your rendering is actually really nice. I like the smooth brush strokes you've got to create the form of the cylinder of the leg. I think that's really cool. Overall, your colors are pretty accurate. Value structures are a little off in areas, but they're pretty close. And I feel like you've captured the general idea really well. It does feel like there's more attention being put on this area than the head and that arm. This area here feels kind of rushed compared to the rest of it. I don't know if that's because maybe it was a little bit trickier, a little bit harder, or you did do it last or first, I'm not sure. Okay, so a couple of things. When you see arms like this in a pose, you've continued the arm through the wrist to the hand, almost as like a straight line. So the arm, the wrist is pretty straight, it goes straight through to the hand. That's okay, but a lot of artists kink the wrist to show that it's there, basically. And that's exactly what this artist has done. They've angled the wrist so the hand kicks in, so it goes down like that and then down like that. Sometimes that does just look nicer, and the artist might not have even realized they did it. But I often think it's because it, like I said, it shows that the wrist is there. So if I do this, it doesn't look wrong, but it just looks less dynamic. So worth noting and worth trying to find angles wherever you can when you're doing a study. One thing you've done really well is the hip angle. Most people get that completely wrong. I would say you haven't maybe pushed it as far as the artist has here, so you can see kind of here and here, whereas yours is there and there. It's kind of, it's less severe. So you have done it, but maybe you could push that a little further. Up here starts to become problematic, and I feel like it's maybe because you just wanted to separate the arm from the body. You just didn't feel comfortable pushing it in, because this is quite an uncomfortable pose. It's quite interesting. But as you can see from the rib cage here, the arm goes into the body. There. If we look at yours, the body goes here and then your arm runs alongside it. And also your arm is really wide compared to the original. So again, just look at that. And just check why did you feel like that arm had to go off the side of the body? Because it probably sits somewhere in there, kind of angle, like that. The rendering up here is actually quite nice. I feel like you've achieved it quite well. It's just not dark enough. So when you're trying to achieve saturation, so if I highlight this bit here, see how saturated that is? It's really far over to the right hand side for saturation. You need quite a mid to dark value to achieve that. If I color pick yours, it's less saturated and it's also much lighter. So if I grab that, there you go. See, you're getting lighter and you're trying to achieve saturation, but to achieve saturation, you have to go over here and that gets darker. So just be aware of that. If you're trying to achieve these kind of glowing type effects, make the overall values darker and then you'll have an easier time. The face is pretty good. I feel like maybe you just needed to zoom in and spend a little bit more time refining the value structures and the simple form. Faces are really tricky and it looks like you've used a chalk brush, which is obviously going to be quite hard to achieve a good face. Silly little things like the curve here of the jawline is created using a blend of values that yours is missing. You've almost got like a straight line which just flattens the image out. Same goes for here. You've got this shape here which you've tried to add, but it's just not blended enough, so you just need more brush strokes essentially. So I'm going to grab a chalk brush because that looks like that's what you've used, and let's just see what I can do creating gradients essentially and see if it helps, because I feel like it's heading in a really good direction. Got some issues like the eyes. I feel like that eye was a problem. Most people get the eye on the distance. It's hard, and you've made that side completely in shadow, and it's not. It is in shadow, but it's lighter. See if I can grab blue there. Yeah, more that kind of value, and then it gets lighter even still in here. Now I've only got a minute or so, so I'm not going to achieve a good result here. But just study some portraits essentially. Just spend a little bit longer creating gradients. So I think that's really important, especially for female faces, because they are smoother in general. You'll notice I'm not really changing much of your color choices or value choices. It's more just pushing them around. And obviously the original, they've spent quite a long time on that, rendering that face. That's not something you can do really quickly, so if you only spent 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that, give yourself a break. I think you've done quite well. I mean, I've potentially just made this look worse really. Let's add a slight curve at the bottom to show you what I mean there. I haven't obviously redrawn the face. I feel like there are some errors because the gap here is huge on yours, so that's something you definitely want to try and fix. Right, if I zoom out and then just turn that layer on and off, you can see I've just started to add gradients, started to round around the face like this. Just started to add value structure. Now I could spend maybe 15-20 minutes, something like that, and you'd end up with probably quite a nice face. But the rest of the image, it just needs cleaning up. You've got a lot of soft, loose brush marks, And this, if you like this style of artwork, it's the opposite. Very clean, nice, strong, bold marks. So that's what you want to work towards. So again, I think similar to the last piece, maybe you could spend half hour longer on this, zooming in and just cleaning up the form just to see what you end up with. One thing I didn't mention, your head, if we look, your feet are in line. It looks like you did this next to each other. Your head is much lower and much bigger. So again, proportions, it's worth maybe drawing out a red line just to work out where the anatomy is, like this, and then see where yours went wrong, because your shoulders should be up there, head should be up kind of there. Look. There we go, should be up here somewhere. So with the horns, so everything needs pushing up. Maybe it needs to be more like that, and then you're getting closer, and then the head needs to get smaller. More like that. But yeah, just re-look at it, work out where you've gone wrong, and move that arm in. But yeah, great work overall. Really tough piece as well to do, I think. Okay, yep. Arnie Billan, cool. Yeah, I've seen your work actually. Arnie has a YouTube channel, I believe, so check that out if you haven't already. And I believe you recently uploaded a video of showing how many studies you've done, which is a ridiculous amount. So you're very competent at studies, and this just shows that. I think there's not much that I can add other than a few accuracy problems. The actual face you've achieved is fantastic. I think it's really nice. Some of the soft gradients you've got going on are really cool. The separation you've got with the cheek from the mouth, where it folds in and then breaks out again, you can just about see in that blurry original image. That's really good. It's interesting that you chose a blurry image. I'm guessing this was what you were working from, and that was to essentially maybe remove, because you weren't worried about detail, so you had enough in that photo to work from, which is interesting. I think there's something to learn there, that a lot of people focus too much on details, and you don't need it, clearly. Okay, so a few little things that I think maybe would take this to the next level, and again, it's kind of hard to tell because of the blurry image, but your image would probably benefit from adding some of the shadow areas in, like under the hat. Here is one of them, and it's just to show that that's a rounded form sitting underneath the hair. Again, here is slightly darker. So that's one kind of little fix. Again, the hair around the back, around here, is darker, and again, that's a similar reason, because it's sitting in shadow. So that needs to get darker underneath there, maybe darker than that. So I'm just using a pen brush, so this isn't going to look good. Other than that, I mean, you've smashed it really. The one glaring problem that I noticed was this guy. Needs to move down. More like that. If I get rid of that. Yeah, more like that. So if I merge that down, there we go. So you can see it just makes the image pop out a little bit more. I almost feel like you've spent so much focus on the face that the hat kind of become an extra section of the image, but because it's such a simple composition, I feel like the hat's really important. So yeah, that'd be my main change. Other than that, I think you've done a really great job. My only, I think, view on this is that you've done such a good job. I'm not sure you learned much from it. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe you did, but I think you would stand a good stead in challenging yourself a little bit more, pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. Now I know, like I said, you've done a lot of studies, haven't seen a lot of them, so maybe you are challenging yourself with a lot of different, maybe lighting angles, different compositions, maybe more people in a scene. That's for you to decide, but all I can say is that this, you've done really well. And obviously there's always room to improve, so keep doing these kind of studies, that's great, but you might get more gain out of doing something a little bit more difficult, so to the next skill level, let's say. And for me, that always comes from using your imagination more. So either adding something into a study that doesn't exist, or using one lighting from one study onto a different image. That can work really well, not just copying literally. Because if you want to become an illustrator or a concept artist, you need to make stuff up from time to time. You can't get everything you want from a reference image. So that might be an area to develop. But props to you, man. Great work. Really nice. Right. Ozzy. I'm going to call you Ozzy. Sorry if that's really wrong. This is cool. Really nice. I really like this style. Not something I do myself, but it's really nice. And I think you've done a really good job. I think overall it's nice. Okay, so let's talk about the positives. Shoulders you haven't done straight, which is really cool. That line there, you seem to have nailed that pretty well. Same thing there with the hips. You've nailed the opposite angle, which is really cool. Overall, the pose, what you've drawn, looks good. So the hands look pretty good proportions. Got some problems here with that finger that's important. But we'll come back to that. I even like that you've drawn, you can see just about the leg showing through. You've drawn that in there, which is cool. Hat in general looks like a good 3D form, other than this bit up here. It's not rounded enough. So I think in general the pose, great. Rendering, good. Again, looks like you've used a chalky brush. Wouldn't have been my choice for this style, which we'll come to. And there are some issues with the composition. So I'd love to know why you cropped it. I think the water here is really important. So sometimes with a study, you learn just as much from what you don't do as what you do. And you cropping this is a problem for me because it makes the image weaker. This is here to give space to the legs, to show that there's room, that they're going somewhere. When you crop off like this, it makes you feel awkward, so I can't see where that leg's going. So for all I know, that leg's not in water. Like it adds questions that I don't need. So adding that bottom in, really good. Not sure why you cropped it. There might be a really logical reason. Might have been Instagram for the square image, maybe. I don't know. Other than that, the composition looks pretty good, and what you've created looks pretty accurate. There are some areas like here, you've got a cloud sitting there near the pelvis, whereas the cloud is by halfway down the leg here. So there's some issues there that you'd want to address. So if you're aiming for accuracy there, then that's a problem. It means you're not looking enough. The chalk brush. So this image, one of the main reasons most people like this style, other than the exaggeration of the person, is the very soft, clean lines. So if you look at this, there's such a clean line there down that edge of the leg, which you have got, to be fair. And here, like the gradient around the leg here, very soft and clean. Same with the arms. You're losing that a little bit because you're getting this brushy look with the steps. Now again, it's a nice aesthetic, and there's nothing wrong with doing it with a chalk brush. It's actually what I prefer. But if you're trying to achieve this style, know that you're not going to get it with a chalk brush. Use a softer brush, use gradients, use the hard round brush more, and that'll get you better results. So yeah, that's the brush. The cleanup on the hands is really important. So again, with this style, very clean lines are important. You've got a brushy edge on the hands, it makes it look messy and unfinished. Same here with the kind of rope thing around the hat. That's wrong. And again, the curve of the hat. When you're working with such a simple style, all of those things become mega important. So if you want to work towards this style, shape is so important. You need clean shapes, and you're not currently getting that because of the brush you're using. Silly things like, okay, so here, this bit here, just to change in your process, you should have painted the entire arm without that light and then added it in as an overlay layer or softer opacity, because you can see here that that pattern is still there, it's just lighter, whereas on yours you've got rid of the pattern. Feels like I'm nitpicking, but that kind of stuff's really important when the style's simple. And the hand here, that finger sticking out, it adds dimension to the pose. It makes the hand look like a real hand rather than kind of just knuckles, and that's really important. And if I get rid of that there, same thing here. See that little nook you've got there? Really subtle. You need that to show the thumb. So it's just attention to detail. I think you're heading in a really good direction. And the head feels, it's definitely off. It feels too long for one. too narrow. Actually might be okay width, it's just too long. And the chin should sit inside the neck there, and yours is going off to one side, makes it look a little weird. Yeah, I feel like the shapes in the original are more pleasing than yours, so that's something to potentially address, work out what you've done wrong and find a resolution. And it might be really subtle changes, like even just that there, which is different on yours, might make a huge difference. And the lip shape, again, with this kind of style, because it's so simple, like the shape here for the lips is so simple, but yours went like that on the top lip and theirs goes down. That kind of stuff's really integral, really, because there's only 2 lines to show the shape of the lip, so if you get that line wrong, it's going to look weird. But just watch out for that. See that yours is like this and this, which makes it feel a little bit more cartoony. Theirs feels a little bit more real. And then again, same thing with the water, just clean up. Like this needs to be clean. I would love if just take your image as it is and run filter median on it and see how it looks, like really subtle median, and that might get you some cool results. I don't know if you probably didn't, because it looks like the way you've rendered it. If I was rendering this, I would probably be doing these lights with a color dodge layer. So I would paint them in normally. So I'd probably paint in this shape there for the light and this shape here, but then these I would have painted all in like this, like that, and then added the color dodge over the top. That would have, I feel like that's probably the best process, the cleanest process to do it. But yeah, fantastic work, really good. I'd say more a change in process and thinking rather than final result, but really nice. Okay, final one. Dania, again, apologies for the name. Man, this is awesome. This is so cool. Really great work. There's really not much I can say. There are a few things. Overall, it's just beautiful. And I think you've done a fantastic job. I imagine you have left areas like this kind of left out because you know you can do them. Hopefully that's the case. If you've left them out because you find them challenging and didn't want to do them, then that's a problem. Go back and address that, but I don't think that's the case. You look quite competent, so I imagine it's just because you didn't feel like you needed to achieve the overall concept and understanding of how to create this image. So I think that's really good. Something you've done really well, it looks like you've used the right layering process and a good understanding of how to create the image. So your soft shapes here, like all of these soft gradients, are really nice, and it looks like you've got those in first and then built the character out of them, which I think is the right way to do it. That's the way I would have done it, because it doesn't feel brush marky where you've added the gradients in afterwards. So that's really nice, and the way you started developing form on top is really cool. Accuracy wise, pretty good. I mean, you've got the nice lean in, but it's not as exaggerated as the original, and it's subtle, but you having these images next to each other is really handy for me because I can draw a line through the head and know that you've missed it, like you've gone too high. So if I do chin, see your chin needs to be down there. I'll actually drop the image over the top and you'll get a better understanding. Now all this is just foreshortening. I don't think you've pushed enough, so let's have a look. Yeah, see how yours feels like she's almost falling back a little bit, or falling to the right hand side, whereas theirs feels like she's leaning in. Yours feels like she's leaning, she's falling to the right hand side, her left. And that comes with practice of foreshortening. It's really tricky, and Blizzard work, they exaggerate that stuff a lot. Something I struggle with as well, so don't worry, you're not alone. You just need to keep pushing, keep developing it, and push it further than you think. So silly little things, it's tiny adjustments, but that collar there is longer than yours and than theirs, and that results in your head being slightly higher. So yeah, that's one thing. Something else, color-wise, theirs feels more punchy than yours, and the reason is because it is. So I'm going to grab this color. I'm going to use a soft brush. The main thing I've focused on was the face. It just feels duller than theirs. And you might not want to do it with that saturated color maybe, but just brightening it a touch. It's not much, but like that there. You just need that to bring that out, because remember the face is the focal point, and if I zoom out like this, and then turn that on and off, you can see it makes quite a big difference. So it's just going around the image and making sure you're getting that correct. The other thing that I find interesting, if I look at yours and theirs, if I color pick here, it's a purple. If I color pick the lighter color, it starts to push towards blue. Can you see that? It's going down. So here, it starts to go down, up, down, up, down. That's hue shifting. So to add a highlight, you're slightly adjusting the hue. And the only other thing, I mean, it's a subtle thing that I noticed, but see how long that line is there to show she has a pelvis here, like that. Yours doesn't. It's a tiny little pelvis, so this leg feels like it's attaching to nothing because it's that long, rather than that long. Hopefully that makes sense. So that this here is an issue. So whether that needs to come down to here or this end needs to go up to there, one of the two. So just to make it feel like she's actually got a pelvis. But I mean, fantastic work. Like, can't take it away from you. Brilliant stuff. I'd love for you. It looks like you can nail this down. It looks like you're pretty accurate. So a few little tweaks there for colors, but anyone could make that mistake. That artist doing that piece again could make that mistake. So for me, I would be looking at taking a photo and turning that into a Blizzard piece. If you want to work for Blizzard, it's making sure you can achieve that style from normal references. So that's what I'd recommend you do next, because you've kind of nailed this. I think you've done a great job. There's not much. I think if you did this again, of course you would learn. You might improve in speed and stuff like that, and maybe accuracy, but that's maybe not where you need to make the gains right now. I would suggest, if you can't do already, grab a photo, turn it into a Blizzard object and see how you get on. Okay, so that is it for everyone's artwork. Thank you again so much for submitting. Now, just before you go, I am going to bring up my piece. This was a study I worked on. I worked on it for an hour, and I only used one brush. I'm not going to tell you what brush yet, and the lasso tool. That's all I used to paint this. And I'm going to be doing this in my next video. So if you haven't already, please join my Discord. The link's below if you want to join the next challenge. The next challenge will go onto the Discord as well, so keep an eye out for that if you want to get involved and maybe get some feedback like this. And if you want to see how I created this image, subscribe and turn on notifications, because this video will be coming next about how I created it. So that is it. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully that was useful, and I will catch you in the next video.